and welcome. It feels like it's the light at the end of the tunnel. My name's Rebecca and this is Wednesday Winos. We have a great show ahead of you, so keep watching and just in case, because we're going to be right back with you. Hi, my name is Rebecca and welcome to Wednesday Winos. I'm from Kangaroo Ridge Retreat and a boutique accommodation in the Yarra Valley, and I'm here with...
I'm Ben from What's River Brewing, family-owned craft brewery in Hillsville. And we also have...
Hop it! John and Sarah. Sarah and John, we always do this, so I feel like I have to do this now. We're a hop on, hop off service for the Yarra Valley and also the Mornington Peninsula. And we bring to you Wednesday Winos.
Wednesday Winos, fantastic and welcome. And tonight we have a really exciting show for you. And we have Damien Archibald from Pimpernel, and also we are tasting Grisette from What's River Brewing. But firstly, how's your week going, everybody? How are you going, Ben? How's it going at What's River?
Yeah, good. Today was a beautiful day. The sun is just like still daylight outside. There's a car reversing backwards down the street for some reason. Life is good.
Life's good. Fantastic. Sarah, John, how are you guys going? Hop it.
I'm really happy with this weather. Like, it's just nice to get some sort of nice days in between.
Yeah. It doesn't really affect my skin pigment or color. I'm always good. Which is fine. I've accepted that. But
and the other thing I realized when we're on this live thing is we need bloody haircuts.
Certainly do.
Certainly
do.
Especially over here.
I've got a mullet hiding behind this hat. I'll try.
Well, my wife got a 6-year-old daughter to cut her hair this week, which was pretty bold, I thought. So
turned out
good on Hannah.
She's got what, a 6-year-old?
Wow.
Yeah, she did a really good job.
Fantastic. So tonight,
where's your wife tonight? Okay.
Putting the kids to bed.
Putting the bed.
Yeah,
they've
got school tomorrow.
Yeah, which is good, really good. It's really great. But let's move on to tonight's show because we have a really fantastic show. Because it's not just about what we're drinking tonight. It's a big event too because we're going to be celebrating John's birthday. It's John's birthday.
Yeah. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. So if you've just joined us for Wednesday Winos, we are welcoming Damien Archibald from Pimpernel Vineyards, and we are trialing or tasting their new release of the Chenin Blanc. So I will just maneuver the little screen for a little bit while I'll bring him on. So just bear with me for a second. Hello, Damien. You're about to come on. Hi. Welcome to Wednesday Winos.
Hello. Yes, I'm especially on for John. It's once you let me know it was his birthday, I just couldn't resist coming on the show.
Thanks,
Happy
mate.
birthday,
We
Tom.
appreciate it.
Thank you so much for joining us here on Wednesday Winos. This is the second time that you've been on from way back when we first started Wednesday Winos. So thank you for joining us again. And yeah, why don't you tell us a little bit about what we're talking about tonight with the Chenin Blanc? I'll let you introduce it all and everything.
Yeah. Okay. So tonight we've got the 2018 Chenin Blanc, which you can find on our website there, and it's so with the Chenin. I mean, we planted Chenin back in 2009, and it was something that both Mark, the owner of Pimpernel, and I were quite passionate about. We really loved Chenin as a varietal, and so we decided to stick some in the ground and see what it'd do in the Yarra. So like all our vines, these vines, they're dry grown. They were dry grown right from the start. So that kind of really helps restrict their yield a bit. Chenin's it's an interesting varietal, so it tends to kind of crop quite heavy. So dry grown, it just tends to control a little bit more. And it's a really, really interesting varietal, and does really well in the Yarra. It's really well quite suited.
Yeah. When you say dry grown, just for anyone that doesn't know much with wine, lingo, what does dry grown mean?
Yeah. Okay. So basically, we don't water our grapes. We don't irrigate. It means that basically we get a little bit of a trade-off there. We might get a little bit less crop. It's not really a problem with Chenin because it tends to kind of crop quite heavily anyway. So naturally, it's quite exuberant. So we get a little bit less crop, but we hopefully make up for that with quality. So allowing us to really make wines that are full of flavour and express themselves in really good ways.
So just to elaborate on that, so because it's dry grown, the roots obviously have to grow deeper and to find the water. Is that correct? So it's
they have to survive for themselves a little bit.
Yeah.
So within that, we might get what we find in our vineyard is we get quite small bunches, small berries, so more skin to juice ratio as such, and that tends to concentrate flavours. So the vines do have to work harder. They go searching for that water supply, and they go really deep down as they possibly can within our soils.
Yeah.
It's kind of a little bit of they do really well. I mean, we've got a lot of we've got a very shallow subsoil. So our topsoil is it's only about 200 mil deep, and then we just head straight into kind of clay, and that clay can vary from kind of 900 to 1.5 meters of clay, and then down into kind of weathered stone. So they tend to get their roots right down deep into those areas as such to help themselves survive.
So Damien, to give a bit of perspective on this, like that, how many wineries are there in the Yarra Valley, and how many do this dry grown stuff that you guys do?
There's not many. There's not many really. I couldn't say for sure how many there are. There's, as far as wineries go, there's a handful. You could pretty much, it'd be well and truly under 10, I'd say.
Yeah.
In the Yarra. I could be wrong in that area. There are definitely some vineyards around which are dry grown as such, but they might not be attached to a winery as such, to an estate, but they might be dry grown. It's hard to get a full grasp on, but the really good ones that have kind of followed that lead or that we took our lead from as such would be Yarra Yering and Mount Mary. I know that Mac Forbes is moving towards or has moved towards dry grown viticulture. So there's a lot of there's a lot of good names that are growing their grapes and producing wine this way.
I think Steele's Gate is one of them as well.
Steele's Gate is definitely.
I think we've had
Yeah.
them.
Okay. There we go. One I didn't know about as such. So yeah, we tend to get maybe a little bit less product, but hopefully we make up with it for just how full of flavour our wines are and how expressive they are of our soils.
So if you've just joined us onto the live feed at the moment,
all those.
Hang on, wait a minute, Ben. If you've just joined us for the live stream on Wednesday Winos, we're talking to Damien Archibald about their new release, the 2018 Chenin Blanc. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about the variety. What should we be tasting a little bit from a Chenin Blanc, for example? Maybe from your style, but what would you expect?
Yeah, okay. So some of these, I suppose I could lead into some of the winemaking here and how that might affect the styles as well. So we're using barrel fermentation here. So for our Chenin, and it's fermented in kind of in barriques and large and also large puncheon form. So 500 litre bottles, barrels. Sorry, so that tends to give a lovely kind of barrel fermentation tends to give a lovely bit of richness to how that wine will show itself as such. And we're using wild fermentation as well. So here it's very quite traditional from where we take our influences with there to use wild fermentation. The flavour profiles is really quite interesting. When you look at Chenin as such, I generally take my influences from France here, from the Yarra Valley. You see quite, I often get like apple-like characters here, sometimes like apple strudel characters. So like apple and cinnamon, a little bit of vanilla from the wood profile that we're using. Yeah, and then, but it varies quite a bit. So you can kind of get some kind of pearish-like characters also. You should be seeing the one thing that Chenin's really known for is its acidic backbone. So it has really, really good acid drive through the palate. So this long-lasting acid, which just helps clean up all these other flavours through the palate. And that's what it's really known for as a varietal as well, that lovely level of acidity.
I definitely get apples, maybe even apple strudel.
So where's the variety originate from?
Yeah, good question. It's been grown in, they talk about it around in.
Where's the variety originate from?
Yeah, so I'm not sure if it's original origins as such, but I know that's been grown in the Loire Valley in France for they say maybe up to 1,000 years. So it's got a long history within that area. Certainly from around the 1600s, it became really quite established within that area. So they've had a long history with it there, and that's generally where I would say some of the best examples are coming from, and definitely where my influences are taken from.
Yeah. I'm trying to
So I've got a bit of a question about that too.
I think there's a bit of a lag here. Maybe we hold a piece of paper.
Yeah, I'll just jump in and ask the question.
Go ahead.
It's the delay on the internet, but I suppose in varieties, like we brew beer, right, at Watts River, and there's varieties in grain and they some stick around, some don't, but they can also evolve over time. Does that also happen in wine? So is a variety that was used in the 16th century, is it likely to be the same in 2020, or do we know even? I suppose it's a question. Or
what do you mean by like wine style as such, or
varieties of grapes in particular, like is a Chardonnay from 1500s the same varieties as they are now, or are there new varieties of Chardonnay, for example?
So what tends to happen with, say, grapevines of certain varietals is you'll get different strains or different clones that are selected, and others that are kind of forgotten as such. So it's a little bit like you will have some strains that maybe just aren't quite. They don't do that well in the vineyard, so people will pull them out and then they'll propagate their more favourite selection, and then from there they may separate them, and they're kind of scientifically recognised for their properties as such. So they kind of got the kind of the weak ones or the ones that are maybe over exuberant tend to be weeded out over time, and that therefore the varietal kind of it improves by that manipulation as such.
Yeah,
if that makes sense. So with all varietals, and I mean, as such, with when we talk about clones within generally people talk about clones within Pinot, but there are a lot of different clones across the board with all varietals that where there've been significant maybe discoveries or improvements on those varietals and clones where you've had these developments. And I think it's only really until recently that we may have scientifically recognised that, but I think in the past growers have recognised that, and just by naturally seeing it, as you know, Ben, growing up on a farm, you kind of you're intuitive in these areas, and it just naturally kind of occurs.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it does. I suppose the
isn't it your birthday? Can you?
Yeah.
right.
Oh, it's me. Oh, thank you. No, it wasn't a question. It was more a remark, as in, like, I don't think I've had a Chenin Blanc before, so I'm trying. My brain is like trying to class it like a Chardonnay, but it's not really Chardonnay, and it's like a Sauvignon Blanc, and I'm trying. Like, my brain is trying to sort of find where it goes. Like, yeah, it's
Yeah,
it's delicious, by the way.
It is.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I really get what you say about the acid cutting through or whatever. So it's definitely doing that, but it just on the palate, it's rounded. It's a really good wine, like all the other wines. Like, you're one of my favorite winemakers in the Yarra Valley, and full stop, to be honest. It's like your wines are always great. So. And this is no exception. It's great.
Yeah,
it really is.
I think it's a very versatile wine, isn't it? Like, you could pair it with quite a bit of food as well, like a range of variety of food.
Yeah.
It'd definitely be like, as the weather's improving, I reckon it's really good. I could imagine myself sitting down by the creek and having one of these. It's just like outside, nice weather.
Definitely feels like a bit of the light of the end of the tunnel. The color of it is really nice. Hay, not hay. Yeah, actually, like a dry grassy look. I know it's really quite yellow. And I do struggle to taste the apple, to be honest. I actually thought what I find more prominent for me, my palate, is the mineral. So the limestone aspect to it, and I don't know whether that's. I guess that might be just what I pick up a bit more. So, am I making that up? I don't know.
I think you are.
The first thing that came up, because I don't taste.
Everyone's got a different palate.
Yeah, I know. So what's coming out is limestone.
So I think Becky, we've had previous conversations about these types of things, and I've written, I've given myself a few notes for tonight, and definitely that mineral aspect, that real lemony, zesty character that comes through with that acid drive on the palate. These are all things that are definitely, they're showing within this wine as such. Ben, I'll give you that money later for your comments. Thank you very much.
You better.
it is, as a varietal, it's an extremely flexible varietal. So within the Loire Valley, where these grapes are generally grown as such, I mean, it is grown in a lot of other places in the world. South Africa's got some of the largest plantings in the world. California grows quite a bit of it. Because of it, the proximity of WA to South Africa, there's an influence there. So it's grown quite a bit in Western Australia and also in South Australia. But where I really like it from, and I keep coming back to this area as such, in France, in the Loire Valley as such, it's just got so much flexibility. You can make bubbles out of this stuff because it makes some of the best sparkling wine in the world. They make it. This particular wine is of a dry style, but they make maybe an off dry. They make an off dry style with a tiny bit of residual, or they may make what they call a demi-sec, which is more in that mid area with around 20 grams of residual sugar. Or you can make a full kind of sweeter version. You can make often in the right years, I'll make a botrytis style wine out of these grapes. So it's got this incredible flexibility to do all these amazing things. So I think that's one of the reasons why we really got drawn to it in the first place.
Awesome.
I've got a question which has come in on our page from Scott. So he's asked, what's the yield per hectare on average, I suppose?
On average. On average for us, even dry grown, I think the largest yield I've seen off this stuff is around 3 ton dry grown, and then probably averages about somewhere between around 2.2 to 2.5 dry grown.
So what would the other varieties you grow yield, I suppose, is so as a comparison?
A fair bit less than that. For us, Chardonnay usually comes in probably at about 1.6 to 1.8.
Oh.
Yeah, so it's
and Pinot,
quite a bit higher then.
Pinot maybe somewhere between 1.2 and 2.2. So the Chenin does tend to have quite large clusters of bunches, and we need to be a little bit careful of that. And what I found with vine agents tend to settle down a little bit and be less exuberant in the vineyard. So we've had some pretty decent thinning regimes within that varietal to reduce its crop even further as such, and make sure that we're not taking too much of it. But it is quite
So why do you have to be careful about, like, over? Is it like keeping out like disease, or is it just diluting the flavour, or a combination of both, or what is it?
What happens when there's too many grapes?
It's a combination of many different things there. So you bunches, I've got to be careful here. Bunches touching bunches there may be some disease that comes from that. So some botrytis and things like that. So you might want to kind of like thin some of them out and reduce that risk. And then also, if you with younger vines, they do tend to be a little bit exuberant. So in the really early years, as such, we would definitely go in there and thin it out quite a bit. We'd kind of probably cut out 30 to 40% of the crop to reduce it, because if we don't, all the leaves will just fall off the vines, and you won't be able to ripen that crop in a dry growing environment.
Yeah.
So you've got to be careful that you want the fruit to ripen and for it to have this all the benefits of the flavour that's going to give you, but it's not going to do that if it doesn't get there. It'll be too green and won't give you those things that you want.
Yeah.
So just giving the vine a bit of a helping hand along the way by reducing that crop, and you can do that in many ways, by either removing buds as such early on in the season, or green thinning, so cutting off bunches when they're probably just after Christmas time, and reducing that crop there as well.
Yeah, I think that really shows in your in oh.
The delay in the video. Go ahead.
So John and Sarah.
It's my question. Yeah. Sorry, I was just going to ask what keeps you busy at the moment as a winemaker. I usually ask that question, and obviously we're moving through the year, so every 2 weeks, and I know things change. So what keeps you busy at the moment? Yeah, as a winemaker.
Yeah, well, look, I suppose for me, Pimpernel. For those that don't know about Pimpernel, it's we're a 16-acre vineyard, so we're quite small, just in Coldstream there, and so my job is also to is kind of winemaker and manager, so it extends to the vineyard as well. We were rushing around tonight trying to repair a spray cart that had broken down, so that we can get it fixed before we get some significant rain that's coming. So that kind of that leads you to be quite busy. And then at the moment also, because we've got no cellar door as such, and we're trying to limit people on site because of COVID, so it extends to doing a lot of packaging of wine as such. And then also we're in the like this time of year, a lot of wineries would be busy preparing for bottling or racking as such, racking barrels, and then for us, we're bottling some of our 2019 wines. So we've had our Rhone blends usually have an extended program, so kind of 18 to 20 months in barrel. So doing those types of things also. And a few things like this. So this, like, it's never been busier really for us. It's kind of, it really is like, we have not stopped since the pandemic started, and we haven't been able to, and it's kind of like you just kind of catch your breath before next vintage.
Yeah, I mean, we've been delivering for the last 6 months, so we're coming up every 3 days up to the Yarra Valley, and everyone that we know in the vineyards, the winemakers, the wineries, they're non-stop. They're redoing the decking. They're redecorating. There's so much going on at the moment. It's cleaning up, getting ready to open those doors again, which is really exciting. Which I suppose leads to my next question. So I have a question. Right?
Another one.
Birthday boy has a question.
I have one too.
I've got my last question and birthday question. How has COVID affected Pimpernel?
Good question as such. I mean, it's definitely changed our working environment as such. We operated a very small cellar door, so it's obviously reduced our capacity to sell wine by hand as such. I feel we've got some pretty decent supporters, so we're really lucky in that way that we've got decent support from our loyal club members and people that appreciate our wine. So for me, I feel really in a privileged position to be able to say to people that have helped us along the way, I really thank them for doing so. And we're a little bit down, but we're not so far down that we're like other businesses and are in Victoria as such. So I feel like we are kind of like have escaped some of those issues. So it has changed the way we operate by doing things like more webinars and things like that as such, and how we communicate with our members. But I think there's some real good ways to learn out of this, and if you're not taking some of those things on board, then you're missing an opportunity not to touch on these areas and maybe improve what you can do.
Yeah,
glad you said that. Yeah, completely agree with it.
Over to Beck.
So, just joined us on the live stream once again. We're talking to Damien Archibald about the 2018 Chenin Blanc from Pimpernel Vineyards, and I do have a question about this one versus the last vintage, because how does it develop, and what do you see the major differences between this vintage, the one that you've released, 2018, versus the previous one?
Yeah. Okay. So this particular wine, I suppose, I see probably a little bit more. My winemaking has evolved with this varietal as such. So therefore, I'm hoping that we are seeing slow improvements within our wine. We actually the 2017 vintage as such was a bit of a write-off for us. We tried to do some experimental winemaking there. It didn't work for us, and I ended up having to actually chuck out a vintage. So because I just wasn't happy with it.
Okay.
What went wrong?
I think I didn't know what I was doing.
That's the best way to be better.
So when you say you checked it out, did you it was all dropped? The crop was dropped, or how?
The bottles were opened and tipped, or?
Yeah, so basically a little bit of bottle tipping. So we weren't completely and utterly convinced that we'd done our best, and therefore I wasn't happy with the stand. And this is something that is not new to us, and it's not new to the principles, I suppose, that where I've worked in the past is held that if the wine's not good enough, then we're not going to sell it. So in that way, in that particular year, the lucky thing was basically in that year I was trying to make a demi-sec style and it didn't turn out. And then we did a trip over to Europe, and I went and talked to we visited the Loire Valley and went to areas like Savagnin and Vouvray, where Chenin, that's basically where some of the best comes from in the world, and visited some winemakers over there and talked to them about their techniques and also about how they go about making their different styles of wine and what their thoughts were, and that really helped us take an improvement and or make an improvement on our product, and yeah, I feel like we came on leaps and bounds from there.
So, from my point of view, I really love your philosophy. When you're not happy with it, you dump it. So at the brewery 2 days ago, we dumped a beer, 500 litres, which we have only done a few times. But if we're not happy with the product, we dump it. And I think that's really important for brands, like, and your customers, like, so they have trust in you. So I'm really super glad that, and I've always had that philosophy since I was a home brewer. If you don't like it, just tip it out. Don't drink substandard stuff. So I'm really pleased to hear you say that. And
or call the nearest Welshman that you know who will happily drink anything.
I don't know.
Now, look, I think some of these things are really important for, like, okay, so we can't within the wine industry. I mean, a lot of people might think that everything that you make is perfect, and I'll never pretend that is the case as such. So it is something that does occur and will occur, and experience, especially when you're being experimental within your winemaking and you're trying new things that you've never tried before. You don't have many good kind of examples maybe around you that you may be able to learn from. So it was a really interesting experience as such. It's not, and it happened. It would happen quite a lot within the wine industry for people to go, well, this has not worked out. They may not tip it, but they might put it into maybe into something else as such, or they may just go, well, okay, this wasn't good enough. We're going to get rid of it. And I think it's a really, it is an important thing to do as far as quality control goes. We use all different methods of quality control, be it in the vineyard as such, by cutting out bad fruit, or on a sorting table by making sure that you're using that for sorting it out. So the best thing you can probably do is, if it does get through to barrel form and you're not happy with it, is to tip it. So it's but moving on from that, as I mentioned, we did that trip, and the benefits of that was this 2018 wine where we kind of learnt from those mistakes and improved on what we were doing.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of, like, when you're being experimental, like, if it's good, you sell it. If it's shite, well, yeah, you tip it. Like, it's as simple as that from our point of view. Like, and it seems like, I think most people have that philosophy, but not everyone, I don't think. But I think there's no advantage to anyone's brand to sell substandard stuff, particularly for you guys when you make such premium products. Like, for you guys to sell a substandard bottle would definitely hurt your brand, because you make great stuff all the time.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. Yeah, so for us, it's our standard and where we hold ourselves. So
you had a question, John.
So that's important to us.
John, you had a question.
Wine are you giving Ben after tonight? Because I love your vineyard too, and I love your wine, and I think you're amazing. You're my favorite winemaker. I'll take.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for those comments. Making me blush.
I can't wait till we see each other in real life. You go, are you still my favorite winemaker?
So I do have another question from our Facebook feed, which is from Scott. He's wondering the bunch and berry weight on this wine.
Technical.
Wow, Scott.
Oh, that is huge.
Maybe explain what that means.
Yeah,
and then answer.
So I know that I know where this question's coming from as such, and Scott would be probably fairly surprised that we don't really concentrate on that. Our technique with how we look at whether or not fruit is good is by pressing out samples by hand and tasting the juice as such, and then going from there and deciding on when we're going to pick our fruit. We're really not into the kind of the game of weighing bunches and berries as such. Being dry growing anyway, our berry size is quite small, so it's not something we really kind of spend our time doing as such. We more concentrate on what we do in the vineyard to make sure that all that flavour's going in there, and then the rest can just take care of itself. So in saying that, the bunches, they're probably some of the larger bunches in the vineyard, but as such, but the berry size is still quite small, so that means we are getting that flavour in there. And it's also, like, Chenin's a really interesting varietal with that acid level. It comes in at a really, because I know that Scott the next question will be about pH. So the pH is quite low. It's really, it kind of comes in between 3 and 3.1. So you've got this really ripping acid that you can work with, and it tends to gain flavour at low bome, so it's to your benefit in that way within climate change. And it's also quite a late pick, so it's a varietal that comes in well and truly late on in the vintage. So which is beneficial because it kind of helps it protect it from sunburn and things like that. So being a late ripener means that the bunches may be greener early on in February as such, and they avoid that crucial area of sunburn, which we're suffering a little bit more of in the Yarra Valley.
So, yeah, following on from that, like...
Hang on. Sorry, Ben. Sorry, we kind of got to move on a little bit. So I just wanted to bring up a bit from the Visit Yarra Valley on their feed. We had a comment from them that said, basically talking about pairing with this particular wine, the Chenin Blanc. And I had a conversation with Yarra Valley Pasta when I was trying to talk about pairings with theirs. One of the wines that they suggested for their goat's cheese ravioli was actually a Chenin Blanc. So that was one thing. The suggestion that came out was from the Visit Yarra Valley was pork and mushroom sauce. What are your calls out for pairings?
Pork and mushroom sauce. Well, I suppose the acid level here has got some really it's got the ability to cut through cream dishes. So yeah, definitely kind of like you could pair this with kind of with things that do have that creamy aspect of stuff. It would also cut through Southeast Asian dishes with coconut milk and things like that and such. Seared scallops definitely is something that, we had some seared scallops on the weekend and it went really nicely with that. And then from there, I'd say pork dishes, chicken. It really does lend itself to different areas there where it could be quite flexible from seafood to pork to chicken. In those rounds.
Yeah, awesome. Sounds yummy. We haven't had dinner yet, so this is gonna
Yum.
Sorry to make
it sounds good to you guys.
yeah.
Work. But we move. But if you've just joined us on the live feed, we're talking to Damien Archibald from Pimpernel Vineyards, and we're talking with the Chenin Blanc. But we always talk about a second drink. So we were just so that was the drink that we had just then, and we're going to move on to our second drink, which we're really happy to hear what you think about it, Damien, with the Grisette from Watts River Brewing, so we can show this one. So yeah, Ben, so tell us about the Grisette.
Well, we occasionally get some Belgian yeast in and just do it like a kind of range of special batches. So this was what we decided to do was, Grisette. So traditionally it's a beer for like a lot of the, say the more alcoholic beers from the region of the border of France and Belgium were a bit more alcoholic, but this was basically what the miners drank rather than the farmers. So the miners would come up out of the mine, bit lower in alcohol. This is 4.2%, so could be lower, could be higher, I suppose, depending on what you want. So it's just a easy drinking beer after a long day of work. Traditionally, Grisettes, they could be a little bit tart. Ours is not super tart. There's a hint of tartness in there, but not much. We've used the yeast, which comes out of the Ardennes region, which is a bit further north, I believe. But the yeast throws out some esters, some phenolics, so you might get a bit of fruitiness from the esters, phenolics, a bit of spiciness, but it's a beer. If you come out of a mine, just want to whack one down, basically.
I'm a descendant of miners. This is I'm tasting my ancestry in this beer right now, Ben.
Okay.
You're gonna say that you are you're part Welsh dragon or something like that.
Part Welsh dragon, part pirate. But this, I might be showing my inexperience here, but I'm getting a ice beer in this. That is beer. Say it right.
Oh yeah, so that's the esters. So in esters, there's banana, other fruity characters, and that comes out from these other strains of yeast as well, German, but Belgian yeast throw out a lot of them. So yeah, you're right, exactly. So there's definitely that fruitiness. So they're all the ester characters that come out from the yeast.
Yeah.
So yeah, spot on. But
what do you think?
Some people hate them. Most people actually think they're interesting. Some people super love them. So but yeah, in certain regions of the world, that's just the norm. And they are actually quite delicious. So it's a yeast-driven beer. It's not a lot of our beers are hop-driven or roasted malt-driven in our stout, for example. But this is fermentation-driven, and doing a good fermentation-driven beer is a lot more hard. It's a lot harder than doing a say a malt-driven beer,
Beer.
because the malts are set,
Oh.
whereas the yeast, you have to control the fermentation and deal with it, I suppose. So, but
Yeah.
we're pretty good at doing that at Watts River. Like we're really good at controlling yeast. We've got a propagator, so we get new yeast in, we propagate it up, which I don't know any other brewery of our size that has a propagator. So we actually really treat our yeast well to get those really good yeast flavors that you want from a yeast. So
what do you think, Damien?
Yeah, well, I'm a bit of a fan of these
Oh, here we go.
types of aromas here. This is going to be a love off between me and Ben. I really quite enjoying this. I'm enjoying the one thing I really enjoy about this beer as such is the lower alcohol level here. So you can, it's something that you can drink and enjoy and have a couple when you're watching the footy and it's not going to knock you about too much and such. But more importantly is the flavour that's packed into it. So it's quite a full flavoured beer at that lower alcohol level. It's 4.2. Is that correct, Ben?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is.
So I mean, but then again, you're getting this. There's within that flavour profile. I'm really quite enjoying. You mentioned banana. It's almost like that. Reminds me a lot of kind of like as a kid having those banana lollies and seeing those kind of aspects. But then you're getting these kind of these spicy green coriander seed characters there that I'm picking up on a little bit. Just a lovely bit of spiciness to it. This on the greener spectrum that's cutting through, and that I suppose that rounded soapy feel on the palate, which is quite enjoyable.
Yeah, so that's all fermentation. So this is a fermentation-driven beer, which in the craft world these days, it's all about hops, and extremes. Whereas this is, I think that's something that we do quite well at Watts River is we do quite a few like releases of single batch stuff which are fermentation driven, and it's fermentation driven beers are harder to do than just chucking hops in the kettle or hops it's chucking hops in is easy. Like you just chuck it in, that's okay, you get a result. Like balancing out the hops and stuff is another thing. So it's not just chuck hops in, you have to get the profile right. But fermentation, you really have to keep an eye on it and control your ferment and make sure your yeast is healthy. And
sterility, I guess, would be a part of it.
Well, that's any brewery has to be really like have a clean profile, and I think that's something that we worked at White Rabbit and learning through that process. Like we're really, and my background in science or whatever, like I did like subjects which were related to fungi, disease, whatever. So knowing where the threats are, so clean. So we're a pretty unique brewery, and we're happy to have Brett in the brewery, and we're happy, but we're confident we can keep our other beers
safe,
Brett free.
Yeah.
Because we have super clean processes. We don't open up tanks unnecessarily, and in fact,
that's one of the biggest things that I also learned through home brewing. Don't open your fermentation tank while it's going. First error.
Well, it's hard to, it's like you get away with a lot with fermentation, which is what I found. Like you definitely do, but Brett is aggressive, but we don't, like a lot of other breweries our size, they open up the tank to pitch yeast, and that's ridiculously a no-no for us. Like Like, it's keeping your tank closed unless you absolutely have to open it up, which is dry hopping for us is the only reason why we do it. And it's really controlled. We sanitize the hell out of us, and we keep the tank. It's a 10 centimeter port, which we open up for less than a minute, basically. It's the only time we have our tanks open ever, and half our beers aren't even dry hop. So whereas other breweries I've worked at, like, not talking about White Rabbit, they wouldn't do this, but other breweries I worked at is they would just open up the hatches and let everything in, which you're gonna have the results from it. Like, you just got to follow the science. Like,
so if you've joined us tonight on Wednesday Winos, we have been talking to Damien Archibald from Pimpernel Vineyards with the Chenin Blanc, and we've also had the Grisette from Watts River Brewing. So if you've got any final questions that you want to ask either Ben or Damien from the Wednesday Winos panel, put them in the comments. We'll answer them now, but we'll move on and talk about a little bit about our week and close up and talk about what's happening next week. So we also do a shameless plug. Damien, do you have any shameless plugs that you want to make out for the next fortnight or so from Pimpernel, or anything that you're working on at the moment?
Yeah, I suppose it'd be rude of me not to mention that, for people that want to get a hold of our wine, and you can visit just have a look, put Pimpernel into Google and let us do its job. Pimpernel Vineyards, and you'll be able to find it pretty easily as such. But
is your cellar door open for click and collect, or is it closed totally?
We can do contactless trade. So for anyone that would like to get in touch with us there, they'll find our number on our website. Otherwise, we're just, for people that don't know where we are, when we do open up, we're off Hill Road, just down from Levantine and Rochford as such. So when we do get to a stage where we can open up, then please come and have a look for us, and hopefully we can move back to doing some more normal things and be able to show you some wine and maybe tell you some wine.
For sure. Yeah.
Hop it. Any shameless plug?
Oh, what's a shameless plug this week, John? Well, look, I mean, who knows what's going to happen in the next weeks, months, years? I don't know.
Yeah.
So in the meantime, if you can't visit the Yarra Valley, go and buy some wine directly, or use your local independent bottle shops. Go and buy some wine. We will deliver it to you if you're buying it direct. You'll see us. We're working with a lot of the wineries now in the Yarra Valley. So we will deliver it to you. You'll see our lovely faces, and you can talk to us.
Yeah.
We're nice delivery drivers. That's our shameless plug for the week.
For sure. So Damien, we can have a chat.
Yeah.
Like, deliver some of your wine.
This is not a business.
It's not a business. It's a shameless
Ben. We'll move on. Ben.
Our shameless plug is American Barbecue is back at Watts River. So Steve, who is great on the barbecue, is cooking up a feast this weekend. But we do want people to pre-order, so we know how much stuff to buy by tomorrow night, midnight. But you can get on our Facebook page or our web shop to see what's available. It's a really good platter. It's amazing value, like ridiculous. Like, you wouldn't. It's going to be an awesome feast and amazing value. Just get on the website, order it, and it will be delivered for free to Hillsville, Chum Creek, and Badger Creek. So
why would you say this right now? We haven't had dinner.
Surely
I will. Yeah. Wait, I can video us eating the meal if you like.
Good, yes.
Delicious.
Yes, please. I like that.
But
What about you, Beck?
so we had American barbecue at the brewery like every Sunday, and during COVID we stopped it, but we just bring it back to locals, 5K radius.
Nice.
Becky can come and pick up if she likes. Yeah.
We're literally just outside the 5K from Watts River. Our 5K radius stops at the train tracks, and then Watts River is
damn.
just over the top of the train tracks.
Anyway,
So our shameless plug is okay. On Mondays at midday, we figure that everyone is struggling with their Monday-itis, at home. So what we do from Kangaroo Ridge Retreat is actually open our cabin doors and we share the view. No matter what the weather, no matter what's going on, whether it's windy, rainy, but it has been sensational weather of late, and we share that view. You can look at the mountains, hear the sounds of the animals. You can hear peacocks every now and then. Every now and then there's an eagle that flies past if you catch it on the live stream. But yeah, that's my shameless plug. We share
That's
on
amazing, by the way.
that is.
Yeah, I have seen it, and it's really cool. Like, it's just, it's really good. So well done for doing that.
If anyone's ever been up to Kangaroo Ridge, it is one of the best views in the Yarra Valley. It's spectacular.
Yeah.
So yeah, all right. To close off, anyone got any happy leaving on a high note?
Oh, just loving the weather, like the nice weather that's coming. It's warm and you don't have to turn the heating on anymore, and you're not freezing and putting the blankets out. So yeah, it's nice. Summer's coming. I can feel it.
That was basically mine too, and
Yeah.
And New South Wales had more cases than us today.
I'm not sure. I'm not.
It's just one day, but it's anyway, we'll see how that goes.
And Damien.
Yeah. Look,
happy note.
Happy note. Well, for me, I think it's basically around the fact that my football team is still in the final. So, go Tigers on Friday night. I don't think they've won enough premierships yet.
All right, you're not allowed on again.
Yes. Thank you so much, Damien. Hold on for a moment while we just close off the show. But thank you for joining us for Wednesday Winos. For next week, we are going to leave you hanging. Not next week. Next fortnight, we're going to leave you hanging for the Wednesday Winos, because watch this space. We're going to make an announcement for what's happening for our next show. So until then, see you on the 28th of October and have a lovely fortnight and all the best. We're looking out for Sunday. So, all right, take care. Bye.
Guys, thank you.